Some of you may have heard that Disney Corporation is responsible for at least one real live ghost town. Disney built its Treasure Island on the resort of Baker's Bay in the Bahamas. It didn't start off as a ghost town. Disney cruise ships will actually stop at the resort, drop off tourists there for the life of luxury. This is a fact. Look it up. Disney blew $30 million on this place. $30 million. Disney blamed the shallow waters, too shallow for the ships to safely operate. And then there was blame on the cast, on the workers, saying that since they're from the Bahamas, they're too lazy to work a regular schedule. That's where the factual nature story ends there. It wasn't the sand, and it wasn't because foreigners were lazy. Both were unacceptable excuses. No, I surely doubt these reasons were legit. Why don't I buy into this story? Because of Mowgli's Palace near beachside city of Emerald Island in North Carolina. Disney began construction of Mowgli's Palace in the late 1990s. The concept was a jungle-themed resort with a large, you guessed it, palace in the center of the whole thing. If you're unfamiliar with the character Mowgli, then you might better off remembering of the Jungle Book. If you haven't seen it anywhere else, you probably knows it from Disney's cartoons from decades past. Mowgli's Palace. Mowgli was an abandoned child in the jungle, essentially raised by animals and constantly threatened or pursued by other animals. Mowgli's Palace was a controversial undertaking from the start. Disney bought tons of high-priced lands for this project, and there was actually a scandal surrounding some of the purchases. The local government claimed an economic domain on people's houses, then turned around and sold the properties to Disney. At least at one point, one home that had just been constructed was immediately condemned with little to no explanation. The land grabbed by the government was supposedly for a fictional highway project, knowing full well it was going to be. People started calling it the Mickey Mouse Highway. Then there was concept art and a group of staff shirts on Disney's corporation actually held in the city meeting. They they intended to sell to everyone on how lucrative the project was going to be for everyone. When they showed the concept art of this genetic Indian palace surrounded by the jungle, staff with men and women in loincloth and tribal gear, well, suffice to say, people flipped their shit. They're They were talking about a large Indian palace, jungle, and loincloth, not only in the center of a relatively wealth area, but also somewhat a xenophobic area in the southern U.S. It was a questionable mix of points in history. One member of the crowd jumped up on the stage but was quickly subdued by security after he managed to break one of the presentation boards over his knee. Disney took that community and essentially broke it over its knee as well. The house were razed, the land was cleared. There wasn't a damn thing anyone could do or say about it. The local TV and newspapers were against the resort at the beginning, but some insane contact between Disney and the media holding and the local venues came into play, and their opinions turned on a dime. So anyway, Treasure Island was in the Bahamas. Disney sunk those millions in and then split. Same thing happened to Mowgli's Palace. Construction was complete. Visitors actually came, stayed at the resort. The surrounding communities were flooded with traffic as the usual annoyance. associates with the inflection of loss of irate tourists, then it all just stopped. Disney shut it down and nobody knew what the hell to think, but they were pretty happy about it. Disney loss was a huge, pretty much it was wonderful to see a large group of folks who didn't want it to be there in the first place. I honestly didn't give it place in another thought since hearing it close down a decade ago. I live maybe 4 hours away from Emerald Island, so I rarely only heard rumbling and didn't experience the full of it firsthand. Then I read this article, someone who had explored Treasure Island's resort and posted it on a blog about all the crazy stuff he found there. Stuff just left behind. Things smashed, defaced, probably ruined by disgruntled former employees who had lost their jobs. Hell, the local from around probably had a hand of wrecking the place. People there felt just angry about Treasure Island, as folks here did about Mowgli's Palace. Plus, there was rumors that Disney released its aquatic stock into the local waters. They closed it, including the sharks. Who would want to take a few swings at the merchandise after that? Well, what am I going to say in this blog about Treasure Island? Got me thinking. Even though many years have passed since its closing, I figure it might be cool since to do some urban exploring at Mowgli's Palace, take some pictures, write down my experience, and probably see if anything I could take home as a memorabilia. I'm going to say it was a waste of no time in getting there because honestly, it took me another year after I finish after I first found that Treasure Island article to get around up to Emerald Island. Of course, of that year, I did a lot of research on the palace resort, or I tried to. Naturally, no official Disney sites or resort made by any mention of place that been scrubbed clean. Even odder, however, was that nobody before myself had apparently thought a blog about the place or even posted a photo. None of the local TVs or newspaper sites had one word about the palace. One word about the place. Through that was to be expected since they all swung Disney's way. They wouldn't want to be lewd and their embarrassment note. Recently, I learned that corporations could actually ask Google, for an example, to remove links from the results, basically for no good reason. Looking back, it's probably not that nobody spoke about it, but rather there were words made unacceptable.